It started like any ordinary Friday night. Laughter spilled out of the crowded bar. Music thumped from the speakers. And in the middle of it all, 23-year-old Emily Hartwell, radiant, full of life, taking selfies with her best friend, dancing like nothing in the world could touch her. By 1:45 a.m., she was gone. No trace. No goodbye. Not even a phone call. Her shoes were still at the bar. Her car never left the parking lot. And her best friend, the last person to see her alive, claimed Emily simply walked off into the night. But something never added up. Not to the police. Not to her mother. Not to the hundreds of volunteers who combed the nearby woods and rivers. For 6 long months, it was as if the earth had swallowed Emily whole. Until a sudden, unexpected confession cracked the silence wide open. A whispered truth behind closed doors. And a betrayal that would leave an entire community shattered. But what could drive someone to keep a secret like this for half a year? What changed that finally made her speak? And what really happened to Emily that night? This case is unlike anything you've heard before. Because it starts with friendship. And ends in something much darker. And just wait until you hear what was found inside her best friend's storage unit. This is Deep Line Documentaries, where we dive into the most chilling, real-life stories, and uncover the hidden truths behind headlines that shook communities to their core. If you're drawn to the mystery, the psychology, and the why behind the unthinkable, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell because the next case might be closer to home than you think. Tonight, we bring you a case of trust betrayed, of a young woman full of promise, and of a friendship with a darkness no one saw coming. This is Her Best Friend Knew the Truth But Stayed Silent for 6 months. Stick around because what's buried in this story will leave you stunned. Her name was Danielle Carter. Just 22 years old. Bright, kind, always the one to stay back after class to help someone struggling. She was the kind of girl who kept extra snacks in her bag in case someone forgot their lunch. A nursing student in Savannah, Georgia, she dreamed of becoming a pediatric nurse. Not for the money, but because she loved kids. Danielle was raised in a small, quiet neighborhood where people still brought casseroles to new neighbors. Her mom, Angela, was a school teacher. Her father worked for the city's sanitation department. Hard-working people, honest. They raised Danielle and her little brother with values: church every Sunday, curfews by 10, no exceptions. She wasn't flashy. She didn't party much. Her friends described her as a homebody with a big heart. She volunteered at a shelter on weekends. And despite juggling school, work, and family, she always made time for her best friend since high school, Maya Brooks. Now Maya was the opposite of Danielle. Loud, outgoing, charismatic. But together, they made sense. Danielle was the grounding force. Maya was the spark. They had a bond most people envy. You'd rarely see one without the other. Danielle even let Maya move into her apartment when things got rough between Maya and her boyfriend. That's how close they were. They shared everything. Clothes, secrets, laughter. But not all secrets. Because beneath that laughter was something neither of them ever talked about. Something unspoken. Something that, if Danielle had discovered sooner, might have changed everything. Danielle's life wasn't perfect. Like any 22-year-old, she had stress. She was working night shifts at a local diner to make rent. She was behind on her tuition. And then there was the strange text she sent to her cousin a week before everything went dark. Something doesn't feel right. I think someone's been in my room. Nobody thought much of it. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe just paranoia. But then she stopped responding to messages. Didn't show up for work. Missed a family dinner. And that's when the panic set in. The girl who always called back, who never ghosted anyone, had gone completely silent. Her mom filed a missing persons report within 24 hours. And the search began. But the truth was far closer than anyone imagined. Because someone already knew what happened to Danielle, they just weren't ready to tell. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when Danielle Carter officially became a missing person. At first, police didn't see it as an emergency. She was an adult. Maybe she needed a break. Maybe she left town. Students go off the radar all the time. But her mom wasn't buying it. Angela Carter knew her daughter. Knew her patterns. And this wasn't Danielle. The last confirmed sighting was Sunday night. Danielle had just finished her shift at the diner. She left around 11:30 p.m. Surveillance footage showed her walking to her car, umbrella in hand, smiling as she waved goodbye to her coworker. Nothing seemed off, but she never made it home. The next day, she missed class. Then work. No calls, no texts. Her phone, off. Her car, still in the lot outside the diner, locked untouched. Detectives began retracing her steps. They interviewed her coworkers, her professors, her classmates. No one knew anything until Maya showed up at the police station. Maya claimed Danielle had mentioned someone following her. Said she thought it was a stranger from one of her late-night shifts. A man who'd left her a weird note once. But Maya couldn't remember the name. She said Danielle was probably just tired and overthinking. Still, police took it seriously. They pulled Danielle's phone records. Nothing unusual, but her last call was to Maya at 11:46 p.m., just minutes after she left work. Maya said she never got the call. When detectives looked through Danielle's apartment, they noticed something strange. The place was spotless, too spotless. Her laptop was gone, but her charger and school bag were still there. Her makeup was laid out. A half-eaten sandwich still sat on the counter. Whatever happened to Danielle, it happened fast. Then came the biggest clue. A neighbor had seen someone leaving Danielle's apartment late that night. A tall man in a dark hoodie. She hadn't thought anything of it until she saw the flyers. She gave police a description. Maybe early 30s, broad shoulders, moved like he knew where he was going. Like he belonged there. But here's the twist. When police checked building security footage, there was nothing. The cameras had been disabled. They were working at 11 p.m. Dead by 11:48. The exact time Danielle tried calling Maya. Suddenly, this wasn't just a missing person case. This was planned, deliberate, calculated, and the worst part, there were still no signs of struggle. No blood, no broken glass, no forced entry. It was like Danielle had vanished into thin air. Until they searched the dumpster behind her apartment building. That's where they found it. A blood-stained pillowcase, with strands of Danielle's hair. And it was tied in a knot like someone had used it to smother her. That's when police stopped playing nice. They brought Maya back in. And that's when her story began to fall apart. She said she hadn't seen Danielle in days. But her phone pinged near Danielle's apartment at 12:03 a.m., less than 30 minutes after Danielle got off work. Why was she there? Maya hesitated, then said she was just checking in. But the texts told another story. Because the last message Danielle ever sent, it wasn't to her cousin. It wasn't to a classmate. It was to Maya. 4 chilling words. I think he knows. Police didn't know who he was yet. But they would soon. And when they found out, the entire investigation would flip upside down. The tone shifted instantly. Danielle's case was no longer classified as missing. It was now a full-blown criminal investigation. And every detail was on the table. Detectives built a timeline. Sunday, 11:30 p.m., Danielle leaves work. By 11:46 p.m., she tries to call Maya. By 12:03 a.m., Maya's phone pings near Danielle's apartment. By 12:15 a.m., the security cameras are dead. And by morning Danielle is gone. But why? And who was he, the one Danielle mentioned in her final message? Investigators pulled surveillance from neighboring stores and homes. Most showed nothing until a gas station down the street revealed something bizarre. At exactly 12:09 a.m., a dark SUV made a slow turn past Danielle's street, paused for 15 seconds, then turned off its headlights and disappeared into the night. License plate, blurry. Driver, unclear. But the shape of the vehicle matched something else police had just discovered. A vehicle parked behind Maya's house, a black Chevy Suburban. And guess who it was registered to? Pastor Jeremy Lewis, the beloved youth pastor. The man who'd baptized Danielle just a few months earlier. The man Maya claimed had been, like a father, to her after her own walked out. At first, no one could believe it. Jeremy had been a respected figure in the community for over a decade. Charismatic, supportive, he helped run food drives, led Bible study, counseled troubled teens. But when officers pulled his phone records, they found something chilling. Jeremy had texted Maya at 12:11 a.m. the night Danielle disappeared. Just 3 words. It's done. Sleep. Police obtained a search warrant for his home. And that's when things began to unravel. In his garage, they found a shovel with fresh soil still clinging to the blade. In the backyard, near a line of rose bushes, the dirt had been disturbed, poorly covered. They brought in cadaver dogs. Within minutes, the dogs sat, motionless, staring at the ground. The silence was suffocating. Forensics confirmed the worst. Wrapped in a blue tarp, bound with duct tape, was Danielle's body. The autopsy revealed she had been suffocated. No defensive wounds. No bruising. It was clean, quiet, controlled. Whoever did this knew how to make a person disappear without a trace. But here's the part that left even veteran investigators speechless. Inside Pastor Jeremy's office at the church was a notebook, filled with coded entries, times, dates, names. Danielle's name appeared 4 times. So did Maya's. At the top of one page, underlined in red, was a phrase. Clean the slate before spring. Detectives now had more questions than answers. Why had Maya lied? How deep was she in? Was she a pawn or something else? And why would a pastor, a man trusted by everyone, bury a young woman in his own backyard? Was it about control? Or was there something darker, something no one saw coming? The community was still reeling. A pastor, a young girl, a body buried in a backyard. But as detectives dug deeper into records, phone logs, financials, and whispered rumors, they unearthed something far more disturbing than a single murder. Pastor Jeremy Lewis wasn't who he said he was. Not entirely. He was born Jeremy Michael Langston. And in 1998, at age 19, he was a suspect in the disappearance of his high school girlfriend in Indiana. No charges were filed. The case went cold. But the girl was never found. 3 years later, Jeremy legally changed his name, moved states, joined a seminary, and began his new life. Clean slate. He had done this before. Investigators now combed through the church's finances. There were thousands of dollars in withdrawals marked benevolent support, but no records of where the money went. And then came the journal. Remember the notebook found in Jeremy's church office? It wasn't just a planner, it was a pattern. Each entry corresponded to a date, a woman's name, and a location. And at least 2 of those names were tied to unsolved disappearances in neighboring counties. Danielle's name was the last one written. But the most chilling discovery: an audio file recovered from Jeremy's computer. A sermon never released publicly. It started like any other. Upbeat, passionate. But midway through, his tone shifted. He spoke of purification, of sacrifice, and of removing temptation from the flock. And then, in a whisper, God gives us the knife, but it's the shepherd who decides when to use it. Detectives were stunned. Prosecutors began preparing a multi-count indictment. But there was one final shock. Maya, initially treated as a grieving best friend, possibly manipulated, she became central to the case. Her text records showed months of late-night conversations with Jeremy. Voice notes, Bible verses, and then one message, saved as a favorite on her phone. You'll be the next Eve. I'll keep you pure. Maya never responded, but surveillance footage showed her car parked outside Jeremy's home the night of the murder for nearly an hour. When brought in again for questioning, Maya's demeanor changed. She was calm, stone-faced, silent. Her lawyer told investigators Maya had nothing to say. But behind the scenes, prosecutors considered charging her as an accomplice. Because here's the most gut-wrenching detail. The last message Danielle ever sent, "He's here. Maya, it's him," was never followed by a call. Because Maya had already turned her phone off. That night she knew. But why didn't she stop him? Was she scared, brainwashed, or was she part of it? We may never know. But what became clear was that Pastor Jeremy Lewis had hidden in plain sight for over a decade. Behind sermons, smiles, and scripture. And Danielle wasn't his first victim. She was just the one who couldn't be covered up. The courtroom was packed, not with angry mobs or media frenzies, but with faces once filled with love and trust. Former congregation members, parents, students, people who had called Jeremy pastor, mentor, even friend. Now, they sat stone silent, as the man they once followed was sentenced. Life in prison, without parole. There was no plea deal. No apology. No final sermon. Jeremy sat motionless as the judge read his sentence. His only words: "The Lord will judge me." But justice didn't end at the courtroom doors. In the months that followed, the church permanently closed its doors. The building, once a place of worship, was deemed a crime scene, then auctioned off by the city. Danielle's parents started a foundation in her name, Light for Danielle, a program to provide legal aid and counseling for families of missing girls in rural communities. Their message: don't wait, don't assume, trust your instincts. Maya, she was never officially charged. Lack of concrete evidence and a skilled legal team protected her from prosecution. But she vanished from public view. Deleted all social media. Left the state. Some say she moved to Oregon. Others believe she's still in therapy, trying to rebuild from the inside out. But questions about her role still linger. Some believe she was a victim, manipulated by a man she trusted. Others believe she knew exactly what she was doing and walked away clean. Danielle's grave became a pilgrimage site in her hometown. Not just for those who knew her, but for survivors. For people who lost daughters, sisters, friends to men hiding behind masks. And the old church building burned down 6 months later. The fire was ruled accidental, faulty wiring from renovation. But neighbors still whisper that it was something else. Something spiritual. Like the building itself refused to carry the weight of that darkness any longer. This case sent shockwaves far beyond its small community. It was studied in criminal psychology courses. Turned into podcasts. Featured in Netflix documentaries. Not just because of the crime, but because of the betrayal. A man of God. A mentor of youth. A murderer. And perhaps much more. They say evil wears many faces. Sometimes it's a stranger in a dark alley. Sometimes it's a shadow in the woods. But sometimes, it's the voice that prayed over your dinner. The hands that baptized your child. The man who stood at the pulpit and told you, God is love. To this day, no one knows what finally pushed Jeremy over the edge. Was it control, jealousy, obsession, or was it something darker, something that had been hiding behind the sermons and smiles all along? Danielle's family still visits her grave every Sunday. Her mother leaves a fresh daisy. Her father stands in silence, never says a word. Just listens, as if waiting. Because though Jeremy is behind bars, one question still haunts everyone who followed this case. What if there were more victims, they just haven't been found yet? What do you think? Was Maya just a pawn? Were there signs people missed? And if someone like Pastor Jeremy could hide in plain sight, who else is out there hiding behind a cross? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this story chilling, like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories that expose the darkest corners of the human mind. This has been Silent Crosses. See you in the next story. But until then, stay safe, and trust your gut.